Hello and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to show you how to make date syrup. In the last video, I shared how I sweeten my toddler's yogurt with date syrup and also make or bake a stuff using date syrup as my sweetener. So these are the dates I'm working with. It's 1 kg and the seeds have been removed. I think it is called pitted dates and it's actually softer than the regular ones I'm quite used to in Nigeria. So now I'm going to soak the dates in water. I'm going to soak for an hour. If you are using the hard kind of dates we usually buy from Malam in Nigeria, you want to soak it overnight because you have to take the seeds out. And I used to make date syrup back in Nigeria and that was how I did it. I soaked overnight, then removed the dates before going on with the rest of the process. Meanwhile, I sold date syrup back in Nigeria, not officially. I had a business where I sold Greek yogurts, coconut oil, and a healthy snack, and I would usually sweeten that snack with date syrup. Some of my customers knew I make date syrup to sweeten that snack, so they order for it, and I supplied them. So now after an hour, I pour the whole mix, like this soaked date with the water, into the pot. Now, you don't want to throw that water away because that water is very sweet. So if you throw it away, you've thrown a lot of the sweetness away. So you use the same water, you boil it in the same water. If you feel the water is not enough, you can add more, but don't throw that water away. So now I allow it boil for a while. I think it boiled for between 30 to 45 minutes. It boils, it becomes very soft. You know, after soaking it's softer, but the boiling like mashable. So that was what I was doing here. I began to mash it with my masher and I added more water because we actually need that water. Is that water we get the syrup from. Now, I was working with a lot of dates, 1 kg. If you are using a smaller quantity, you can just mash like this and put in the strainer, extract the water like I was planning to do initially in this video. But I realized that by the time I got to the point where I was going to strain in the strainer, the quantity was too much for me because after pouring it and filling the strainer, there was still more left in the pot and I didn't have that patience to wait, and because I have to get all the water out, so I began pressing. I saw that it was taking a lot of time and there was still more in the pot. So eventually I turned it into the blender and blended it up and used the mesh cloth instead because I felt that was going to be faster, and actually I think it was faster for me. So if you're using a small quantity, then this works. This is fine as long as you can strain it well, or if you have time you can just leave it because when you leave it, it strains by itself. Then you can come back and so, but me, I wanted to do everything in that instance while I was in the kitchen. So if it's a small quantity, you can just do it this way and get the water out. But if you're working with a large quantity, I would advise that you should use a mesh cloth instead. Even if you don't blend it, even if you just mash it and put in the mesh cloth, then it's fine. But I just needed to blend it to get all the juice out. So that was what I did eventually. I poured into the blender and used the mesh cloth as you would see later on in this video. Now, I must say that this date syrup is very sweet. Like if you use it, you don't need sugar, believe me, because it is very sweet. So if you can get an alternative to sugar that is healthier, then why not? And also, this is better for our children. Not only for the children, I use it as well. I use it to sweeten yogurt. I take yogurt without sweetening, but sometimes I need it quite, a little bit sweet. So I use dates. I go for date syrup. Now, this is me squeezing out the water. I'm straining the water because it's from that water I'm going to get my syrup from. So I tried as much as I could to get as much of the water out as I could. So I was just squeezing. I really don't like this job. When I was younger, we had to make pap. I didn't like it. I didn't like that squeezing part, but I had to do this and squeeze till I knew that I had a large portion of the water already extracted. Yeah, so this is the water I extracted from it. The shaft was in the cloth, and this is where I get the dates from. So I put the water on fire. I skipped that part. This was after a while of boiling. So you see that the quantity has reduced. And at this point, when the quantity reduces, you want to stay right in front of your pot and keep stirring because you don't want it to be too thick. If it gets thick, by the time it cools down, it gets even thicker. So it was at this point, at this consistency, that I stopped. This was after it had cooled down. You see how much thicker it became than when I stopped. So it gets thicker after cooling down. This was same night. That was like some 1 hour thereabouts. So I poured it into jars and stored them, and believe me, by the next morning it got even thicker, or it gets even thicker than this. So when you are boiling, you want to ensure that you don't want it to be too thick, since you know it will eventually get even thicker. Because I've actually done it that way before. I'd boiled till it was really thick. I couldn't work with it because it was hard. So at that consistency, you want to stop. So here I'm just storing the date syrup in jars. I would put these jars in the fridge, and it lasts for about a month. I think the last one I did lasted for a whole month, and by that time it was still very good. The taste didn't change, no smell, and it was just perfect. Yeah. Now I got the date shaft. Usually when I make dates in Nigeria, I would usually throw the shaft away because I didn't know what to do with it. I made a large quantity, so it was still sweet. So I thought, okay, I can do something with it, and I did something with it. I'll show it in another video. I made a snack with that date shaft. So here's my date syrup. Thanks for watching. Let me know in the comments if you would try this out. Thank you.